Hello and welcome to another trip report. We have just arrived at Manila-Ninoy Aquino International Airport's Terminal 2 and we will be flying with Philippine Airlines once again for another work trip, this time to Shanghai, China. Most Philippine Airlines international flights and all domestic flights depart from this terminal. PAL is currently working on transferring all international flights to NAIA Terminal 1. This is also likely the last time we'll be flying international out of this terminal, which was originally designed to be purely a domestic terminal. I wasn't able to film outside as there seemed to be a large number of police. I didn't want to be questioned for filming, but anyway, we are now making our way to the bag drop counter to check in my luggage as I already completed my online check-in. After a quick check-in, we're now walking to gate 6. The process was quick and the agent was extremely friendly. I also had a nice quick chat with her while she was processing my documents. Immigration was also quick. It took less than 5 minutes as there was only a short queue, and unlike many people on TikTok, I had no problems getting through. As usual, NAIA Terminal 2 has limited food and shopping options, so we opted to just stay at the gate area with my companions for this trip. At 10:05 AM, we started the queue for boarding, which started on time. It was kinda disorganized, but I wasn't surprised given the limitations of this terminal. Our aircraft for today is an Airbus A321-200, registered as RPC 9905. It was delivered to Philippine Airlines in October 2013. This aircraft features 12 seats in business class with a standard 2-2 configuration and 187 in economy in a standard 3-3 configuration. We'll be seated at row 73 at the very back of the plane. As this one for the older A321s, it is your typical A321 CEO seat without IFE and charging ports. You will get the charging ports if you choose a forward seat, which used to be premium economy. It does seem well maintained compared to other PAL-operated A321s I've been on recently.
2 hours and 55 minutes, and we shall be cruising at a height altitude of 34.
And not too long after, the head cabin crew did welcome passengers on board this flight. Announcements were also done in Mandarin given that we were flying to China, and many passengers on this flight were actually Chinese. And eventually, we were 5 minutes delayed from our scheduled departure, and the captain did announce that there is additional aircraft servicing. Hopefully, it won't be too long. And yes, it wasn't too long because after just a few minutes, pushback commenced 11 minutes behind our scheduled time of departure. It looks like we'll be taking off by Manila's runway 24, which is not the usual during this time of the year, well, at least for my flights. We also passed by RPC 3508, an Airbus A350 which we recently flew on, going to Seoul. Be sure to watch my trip report of that flight as well. And after just a few minutes of taxiing, unusually quick for Manila, we were now ready to take off for Shanghai. At 11:27 AM, the seatbelt sign was switched off, and a few minutes later, arrival cards for non-Chinese passengers were distributed. And now we're flying over the South China Sea or West Philippine Sea. A few minutes later, the seatbelt sign was switched on due to turbulence, so meal service, which hasn't started, is expected to be postponed. But anyway, it was also turned off just a minute later. And a few minutes later, beverage service was started, first for passengers in the front rows of the cabin. It then eventually started for the second half of the cabin after about a minute. Meal service also started soon thereafter, just in time for lunch, with choices of fish or chicken. As I was seated in the very last row and obviously last to be served, they unfortunately quickly ran out of chicken option, and sadly, I cannot eat fish. The crew quickly offered to look for another meal for me, which I really appreciated. With that, I was first served a tray with a side salad, a bread roll, and butter. They also offered me a drink, which I asked for a 7-Up, and the crew gave me the whole can without me having to ask, which was also really nice. Eventually, I was served some kind of chicken with rice. I don't know if I should really review it, but why not? So first, the bread roll was nice and moist, which I really liked. Usually, bread rolls I get in flight are dry, and this was definitely refreshing to get. The chicken, on the other hand, was very flavorful and had the right amount of saltiness. I'm not sure what it is, but it does taste very familiar, and maybe I have eaten it on the previous PAL flight. I do hope that other passengers' meals are also as good as this one, as this was also significantly better compared to my meal on my last flight with PAL from Seoul to Manila. About an hour and 30 minutes after we took off, Chinese mainland was now visible. This is actually my first time to visit mainland China. I've been to Hong Kong many times and Macau, but never had the chance to go to the mainland. I also decided to watch a movie that I downloaded on Netflix to pass time. Obviously, there was no IFE, so I had no choice. I also made a quick visit to the lavatory a few minutes later, which wasn't the cleanest, though I kinda expected it because there was a long queue of passengers using the lavatory prior to me, which probably says enough on why it isn't clean. And then at 1:44 PM, or 2 hours and 24 minutes after we took off, the captain announced that we will soon begin our descent into Shanghai in exactly about 10 minutes. And the cabin was also sprayed with disinfectant as required for flights arriving in Shanghai, or I think the whole China. And just a few minutes later, at around 1:56 PM, we did begin our descent for Shanghai-Pudong International Airport, with the seatbelt sign switched on 10 minutes later and the crew starting to prepare for our arrival. I really found it interesting how the water surrounding Shanghai, or in general China, is all brown. And we are now on our final approach towards runway 16 left at Shanghai-Pudong International Airport. And this was quite a bumpy approach. And once we touched down runway 16 left of Shanghai-Pudong at 2:28 PM, 3 hours and 8 minutes after we took off from Manila, it was very smooth. This was a very smooth landing despite the very bumpy final approach, and the pilots didn't even use the reverse thrust of the aircraft as well.
Mabuhay! Philippine Airlines welcomes you to Shanghai. The time is 2:29 in the afternoon and the date...
And we will now be taxiing to Terminal 2 Satellite Concourse, and now would be the best time to talk about my overall flight experience. As usual, NAIA Terminal 2 leaves a lot to be desired. I wonder if moving PAL international flights to NAIA Terminal 1 will actually improve the passenger experience or make it change for something worse. But anyway, the aircraft itself also leaves a lot to be desired, especially when compared to other full-service carriers, but at least it is very well maintained. It would be best for the airline to standardize its cabin interiors for consistency, such as for the A321 fleet. Some are lucky to fly on the newer A321neo aircraft, while some would pay to experience those, only to get this A321 CEO instead. Cabin service was also really good, with very friendly crew assigned to this flight. I really appreciate how they found me a different meal, which again was really good. This flight was also definitely better than my last two flights with PAL, and I hope it gets even better on our way back to Manila. I must say that this is a really long taxi to the terminal, and I think it took like 30 minutes, but at least at 2:39 PM we were already pulling up into the gate. And now it was time to disembark. Given that I was at the very last row, I had to wait for my turn very patiently. And right before I left, I even had a quick chat with the cabin crew about my meal. She suggested that I request for a non-seafood meal next time via the airline's hotline or Facebook customer support, which I did a few days later, and you'll hear about that experience once we get back to Manila. At 2:57 p.m., we were now able to disembark the aircraft, and I guess this concludes our flight from Manila to Shanghai-Pudong. Thank you for watching, and see you again soon when we fly back to Manila.